It's a done deal, chiming in, and the pocket rocket from New Zealand claimed them in a stride. And It's a Done Deal race to the front at the 200 metre mark. This is an exercise gallop. He's moving away for one of the most impressive wins you'll ever see in the Derby. It's a Done Deal, and a hand canter wins it by 5 lengths.
The trio on the far side, Hauraki, Mongolian Khan and Volkstock and Barrel. Mongolian Khan surging through. Mongolian Khan from Hauraki and Volkstock and Barrel. And here's a Trans-Tasman Derby double. Tavago's clear in the Derby. Tully down the outside, trying to get up for second from Jamaica, but Tavago is going to run them ragged in the Australian Derby. Tavago bolts up. John Snow in front. John Snow from Harper's Choice's game. John Snow, another New Zealand victory in the Derby.
Yes, will Darren Flindell be describing yet another New Zealand trained win in the Australian Derby? It's one of 4 Group 1s, the Derby, on day 1 of the championships out of Randwick. We've had the track update with Navesh Ramdani, who has said the track has come up soft. Brad Gray to talk through the form right now. And Brad, as you look out the window, what's the weather like? Is the sun out?
Yeah, it is, Jason. Good morning to you and good morning to all your listeners on a massive day. Excited for what lies ahead. But weather-wise, there was a bit of a fog around probably a couple of minutes ago, but that's lifted now. The sun's shining, so the stage is certainly set. And obviously a soft 7. Hopefully we get to a 6 a little bit later in the day, but all runners should certainly get their chance on that deck.
5:15 New Zealand time is the English Sires, and it features Probabile. Here is the market for it. Loving Gabby is 4.2 on NZTAB or tab.co.nz. Microphones at 5. You've got Bellevue Hill and Kiamichi at 7. Probabile has drifted out to $9.50 and sits on that same line as Castelvecchio here. What did you make of the race for the 2-year-olds over the 1400, Brad?
Yeah, it's a deep edition this year, Jason. Plenty of quality there. Obviously, there's that slipper form, but I'm with Bellevue Hill. Despite there being a little bit of speed in the race, I'm just hoping that it's the horse that really pushes the button. As we know, these Gay Waterhouse, Adrian Bott-trained horses generally lead at all costs. Whether that just scares Kiamichi a touch and she's the one who backs off and maybe takes the sit, being a touch vulnerable or a little bit suspect at least, at the 1,400 metres, I think that'll have a big bearing on his chances. But I loved his strength at the end of the value last week. He ticked that 1,400 metre box, he ticked the heavy track box, and we know he's going to be rock hard. Gay Waterhouse is an outstanding record in this race. When I first did this form, I had him on top. Castelvecchio at that time was around $7. He's got out to about $9 now, and I think that's a really big price. He's the runner that's forgotten. We know his general pattern. He's going to give them a big start, but all along 1,400 metres, even a mile, looked more of his go. So for some reason, he's been completely shunned by the market. So he represents a little bit of value too at the moment. But I do have Bellevue Hill on top. The Kiwi Probabile certainly gets a chance. I guess the problem for her is drawing 12. I know she's generally a back marker as well. But what that means is she's probably a pair or two further back than she would have liked to have been. She's going to give a big start to those up the front. And then she's going to have a horse like Castelvecchio alongside it. So whether it can out-sprint a horse like that, I guess we'll find out, because 1,400 metres certainly suits. But I think that's why you're probably getting the price you are.
It's extraordinary, Castelvecchio's price, particularly, as you said, the step up to 1,400 metres and being by Dundee. We've seen how well he's got through rain-affected track so far in his career.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing about him is it just shows how fickle the nature of futures markets can be. But as soon as the markets came out for the sires, he was posted the favourite. He hasn't been seen since. Yet he's gone from $5, $6 in that opening market to now being $9. You might even get $10 closer to jump. And he hasn't had a run since. So he has trialled, didn't have the blinkers on, so he can't be too critical. But he still hit the line like he normally does. So certainly the forgotten runner for whatever reason.
Okay, a race that we really love as New Zealanders, the Herald's Australian Derby. Are you going with an Australian trained runner or a New Zealand trained runner? Be honest.
I'm with the New Zealand trained runner, to be honest, Jason. Listening to that highlight package there, it gave me a little bit more confidence. It's amazing the dominance that you guys have had over this race. But I'm with In a Twinkling. I know he probably wants a firmer track, but I thought there was more merit than meets the eye in that run in the Tulloch Stakes. And he's another one that's been completely shunned on the back of one run you would have been very surprised coming out of that New Zealand Derby if I told you subsequently that In a Twinkling would be the outsider of all the Kiwi runners, despite beating all of them home that particular day, with the exception of Madison County, of course. Didn't go that way, but he's run the Tulloch. He didn't really handle the heavy 10 conditions. We're not going to get a track as wet here. James McDonald rode that day and came back afterwards and said he's a big action horse, he's a momentum kind of horse, and he just didn't really get through the heavy 10. But you watch the end of the race, and I think we're going to show the Tulloch replay now. His last 50 metres, he's coming again on the line, and as we've seen of him, after 2,500 metres in the Derby, he just stays all day, and I think this is going to turn into a similar race, survival of the fittest at the end, and if they can get a bit of momentum coming into the turn there, he's certainly not going to be slowing down across the line. So I'm happy to gamble at the big odds. Of course, Arrogant, very hard to beat. You put the writing on the wall there in the Rosehill Guineas, that's Group 1 form. The Autumn Sun form ticks that box, and as we know, he gets through the wet final. I just think he's short enough, given how the New Zealand Derby panned out, when you've got In a Twinkling knowing that he's going to really relish the 2,400 metres.
He just doesn't have that turn of foot that some of the others have in a twinkling, but certainly he can sustain a run. And the 2,400 metres, as you mentioned, should really suit. Looking forward to that. It's a great betting race. And don't forget the special that the TAB are running if you are going into a retail outlet for a New Zealand trained winner. And we've extended that just a fraction, both Michael Moroney runners and also the Busserton Young runner. So there are 8 horses that will be running for you at a boosted price. Okay, the TJ Smith, what a hell of a sprint race this is. Not big in numbers, but the quality, well-wee.
Yeah, it's an amazing race, isn't it? It's just chances galore, and it's almost like a little mini Everest in preview, but there's so much depth to this field. The soft track makes it interesting because it doesn't really play into those that like the heavy, your Red Zells and your PRRs, but it certainly doesn't suit those who prefer a genuine drying deck. So it'll be really interesting to see who that benefits. But I'm with Trapeze Artist. He is the race favourite, and I think rightly so. At the end of the day, the way I look at this race is if Trapeze Artist produces his absolute best, then none of his rivals can match him. So I'm willing to gamble that he does produce his best because everything points to him producing that. Last start was the Canterbury Stakes. That's the replay here. He just dominated from the front. He's a horse that thrives in high-pressure races, and Blake Shin was really clever in his tactics this day because he thought, well, there's no horse here that's going to make it a high-pressure race, so I'll go out the front and make it a high-pressure race myself. He relished that, ran away at the end. Scholes hit the line quite nicely, just peaked her last 200 metres there. She was strip fitter, and she looks the danger to me. I think this is a really deep race. You see Brutal back in the field there. He came out and ran a really good race behind Winks, and he's the favourite for Doncaster at the moment. Trapeze Artist's form third up is amazing. He's a grand final horse. He ran second in the Everest third up. He's won the Golden Rose third up, and of course he won the TJ Smith there third up as well. So this has been his grand final all along. I think if he produced his best, he's clearly the horse to beat. But as I say, I've got a big watch on Scholes because I think she's a little bit underrated despite being there. A little bit of support for her in the last couple of days.
Speaking of grand final horses, Redzell is one of those read during the week that Team Snowden suggests not to sort of jump off him too quickly. How do you assess him? Are you sort of against him as well? The market seems to have basically dropped him cold.
Yeah, it has, hasn't it? If it wasn't the Snowden camp, and I know how good they are at getting these horses to bounce back, I would have just penned him completely because I don't think he's going as well as we've seen in the past. He's a horse that generally runs to a very consistent level and has done throughout his entire career, but I thought he was a little bit disappointing there in the challenge. I know he only just went down, but he had his chance, and the same can be said for the Galaxy. He wasn't particularly well in 59.5 kilos, of course, of that being a handicap race. Back to weight for age certainly suits. I'd loathe to completely pen him, but I'd certainly be betting around him.
The Star Doncaster Mile, well, it's always a big field, competitive because it's a handicap. Hartnell's at 9 with Elise at 9. You've got Dixie Blossoms there at 15. Unforgotten is there at $13. Kieran McAvoy, and there's plenty of action with the lighter weighted runners. 50 Stars. Sosie Bonwell, can he place? Plenty suggesting that that's a place play. Sosie Bon at $8.50. Fundamental is there at 10, and you've got Brutal at $5.50. What leads can you give us for the Star Doncaster Mile, Brad?
Yeah, I am with Brutal right down the bottom. I tried very hard to look around him, given he's hard in the market, but I just couldn't. 49 kilos looks a pretty luxurious weight. As we know, 3-year-olds have got a fantastic record in this particular race. So does Bossy. He's won the race 6 times in the past. He answered the SOS from Team Hawks, and 4 of thers wins from his 6th in the Doncaster have been on 3-year-olds. There's no better form in the country or in the world Then running second to Winks as a lead-in. This is a big new peak for the horse. That says to me that he just completely relished the step out to the 1,500 metres. 1,600 metres should be no issue from him. The wide draw probably puts a few people off, but I don't think they're going to go lickety-split here, so he can spear out and hopefully find himself a little bit of cover 3 wide somewhere near the pace. 49 kilos certainly gives him a massive hope in this. He's the one that snuck under the guard of the handicapper there, got in really light. There was a bit of conjecture as to whether he was going to make the field, but he certainly has made it, and he'll make his presence felt right up the top, the opposite ends of the spectrum. I like number 20 and number 1. Hartnell is a horse that can't be dismissed. He's just in potentially career best form. I know that sounds ridiculous to say given he's an 8-year-old, but I think his 2 runs leading into this have been as good as he's ever produced. He was excellent in the Futurity Stakes, 1,400 metres, just found it a little bit too short, and then he really hit the line there without much luck in the All-Star Mile. He won the Epsom last campaign with 57 kilos and actually broke the Randwick track record that day. I think he's going even better this time than he was leading into the Epsom, so he's got to be a massive hope despite the weight. As we know, he just never runs a bad race. Elise is hard in the market, but it's hard to make a case for her because 56.5 seems a really savage weight for her. So without the mare's allowance, she's actually weighted on 58.5, which of course is more than Hartnell. When Winks won the Doncaster, she had 56.5 herself, so it seems like a big task for her. If there's one bit of odds you want to throw in, I think it's I'm Serious. Chris Waller has an outstanding record in the Doncaster. He's won 6 of the past 11. Completely forget her run in the Coolmore. She's better than that. She put up with a little issue when she was wide throughout. Draw 1, 50 kilos on her back. I think she can be punching along the inside fence and maybe fill a hole for the punters playing the exotics, but brutal on top for me.
Okay, how about your suggested bets and your best for the program there at Randwick?
Yeah, we're going to play early, Jason. Hopefully get a little bit of a bank for these bigger races the rest of the day. But I think the first 2 races present the best 2 betting opportunities. A Theory in the first under the set weights conditions of this race. The Kindergarten Stakes, she's just so well in. As we know, she chased home the Kiamichi, the Golden Slipper winner, their last start. A drier track back to 1,100 metres plays into her hands. I think her turn of foot will be too good at the end of this, so we can take the short odds there. And the same can be said for Dealmaker in the next race. It looks a 2-horse race with Chris Waller's pair, Ring-a-Ding-Ding and Dealmaker. I was surprised that Ring-a-Ding-Ding went up favourite. That market has corrected itself since, but I still think there's a bit of an edge there backing Dealmaker because it does look a race that lacks a bit of depth. So he only has to hold his form. Wasn't great there in the Rosehill Guineas last start, but I don't think that 2,000 metres is quite his trip. So Blinker's back to the mile. I think he's mighty hard to beat. And then we can keep one in the top pocket for the lucky last. Fiesta, really classy mare, and I think she's a horse that is really versatile. So of all the horses dropping back from the 1,500 metres or the mile to 1,200 metres, she's the one that can get away with it. It's really well weighted. And there has been a little bit of support for her, but I still think it's a good price about a mare that's coming out of 2 Group 1 races back to a Group 3.